So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find then the scripture used from the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage, where we find then Yirmiyahu, the 61st chapter, indicating the time of restoration, and also then in Matthew, when the Messiah completed his spring feast during the time of completion. He then explained in the 24th chapter what it meant at the time of reduction. As we understand, tabernacling must be then included the first and second tabernacle services, where you find then in Galah both menorahs in the presence of the Creator. So then we find these days the time of restoration in terms of the scripture, but then Gentile level. How we should relate with other countries, as we understand then Galah, and then the nation of China, an increase of knowledge, and then the world being linked up with the system. There was in a paper this morning, U.S., Europe launch negotiations on pact, ironing out details could take 2 years. What are these people thinking? We don't have time to make partnership with Europe. We have to come up with our own first. We don't have enough industry of the past then to maintain our monetary system when the Chinese system comes. We barely have our own system figured out, and we try then to go to Europe, where we understand then a lot of the political understanding and finances came from the time of the seat. What do we not understand the scriptures at the moment, then indicating what we should not do? Because we are so far having reminiscences from the time of the seat. We are trying to make friendship with, the so known time period of the 1,000 years prior. But it's not going to play out this way. We understand China is going to be then the producer at the time of the end, and the system is going to regulate worldwide. What are we doing then in Europe? U.S., Europe launch negotiations on pact, ironing out details could take 2 years. We don't have 2 years. We are not even, our tax code is updated yet, and we are thinking of relationship with Europe from a time where they have a Eurozone over there concocted during the time of the seat. As we understand from Daniel, it won't work. Eurozone is not going to work. It is amazing the amount of lack of capacity of our government to make decisions. Why do you think Germany is removing the gold from our country and from France? Indicating you, Eurozone is not going to last for very long. Then we go along with the whole junk and try to come up with a pact and a deal that's going to take 2 years. We do not even our tax code yet updated. Our government is absolutely unique. So then when we read in Galah, the 8th chapter, and then layered with other areas of Galah, you find then China. Where do you find the third part of the ships? What time are we living at during this existing time of ours? What prophetic layer we are at? People are not asking. They are living as if the world was not going to end. They are lunatics. They were born during the time of deceit. Deceit has taught them the world is going to last forever. But it's not so. We are then understanding the time of the end, the time of restoration, time of reduction. We don't have 2 years. We must update our tax code and then do a very simple computerized tax gathering of these fundings, so then our government can line up with yet the system to come. What are we doing in Europe if they were then concocted theories from the time of deceit? What were the warnings of the statesperson Daniel? At the end of time, nations would try to come together, and they try to have a relationship where then would no longer be iron and clay. This is what they try to do. Is it working? No. Some nations are going to be strong, some nations are going to be weak. Though they are linked up with a main system, so then they have to have character ethics. If this system is found where a country has no ethics, they're going to earn then only a tiny bit. Thus they are clay. When you find then the system is found in a country worthy, and they are then loyal to this system, and they pay what they should, then they are iron. What do they try to do in Europe? They try to take the weak, the iron, and the clay and mixing up together. Is it working? But then our government, US, Europe, launch negotiations on pack, ironing out details could take 2 years. What kind of a deal? What kind of a details? Our tax code is not updated. Our industry is not refurbished. And we want to take steps from a time where it was deceit. It's understandable. The president has a lot on his agenda. He has to deal with religion. But then what about the vice president? Does he not have brains of understanding? Let the president deal with this jargon of religion. At least himself, the vice president, can get the work done. And then we are launching ourselves with Europe. For what reason? The Eurozone is going to break. It's disgusting. We can barely understand ourselves. When we were during the Second World War, we were able to get out of it. We had taken leadership, and we came out of it. Now we have come out of 1,000 years of deceit. You have this scripture nearly 100% defined, and then US, Europe launch negotiations on pact. What kind of a pact? First is then the Eurozone work. It won't work. Daniel said nations would be clay and then nations would be iron. It's not related with economics. It's related with culture and ethics. That's why the Eurozone is not working, because most countries, they don't have ethics. Germany has at the moment lots of ethics. France is very ethical. And then the other countries of Europe, very ethical. Great number of them are not. So then those who are ethical are going to take the time and take the others by the hand. This is what the US is thinking is going to take place. Those people in Europe, over there, those countries in trouble, then is going to be taken by the hand by the others. Literal. Taken by the hand, literal. They have to leave their positions, go over there and take by the hand. It's not figurative of speaking. Is the Eurozone is going to work? Why do you think Germany is removing the gold deposits from our country, and then also France? Can we overdo what the prophet said? Some countries are going to be as clay. It was determined a long time ago. We can't change it. Some countries are going to be strong because of ethics. The neutral system, however, gives the chance of both of them. If they are unethical scoundrels, let them scoundrelize themselves. What was then the remark of the angels? Those who are evil remain evil, those who are worthy remain worthy. So if the angels were then given 100% certainty that the end, some of them would be scoundrels, some of them would not be scoundrels. Can they make a half scoundrel, half ethical? And then blindly US gets in the midst of it. Oh, let's try to make a pact. For what? For what reason? We do not even have our tax code updated. We are not gathering revenue from the internet. Our industry is in shambles. But then we want to join up Europe while the Eurozone is going to break. And we thought we were God-fearing people, huh? So obviously we should not make any deals with Europe. Let them take care of their problems. We understand there is a neutral computerized system coming. Whosoever is unethical are going to earn a tiny portion of it, and they have to deal with their junk. Thus they are clay. Those countries, they are serious, and then they are doing the work. Along with the system, they are going to earn much. Thus they are as iron. Can they mix? No. You are speaking of ethics. Some countries are ethical, some countries are not. Europe's trying to make the gray area, they try to make sure they make those people work. They won't work. They weren't meant for work. That's why I have to leave them alone. They are clay. If you are iron, stick with your iron. Do what you have to do. The first order of the house should be tax reform. Because every day that gone by, it is revenue lost in the system. People are not paying taxes. So from the basic order of an understanding of a government, shouldn't we take care of taxes first? Make sure we gather the taxes from the internet and simplifying any computer. They are speaking of great details could take 2 years because the negotiations are complicated. Why are we making partnership with others if we do not have even our own tax code straightened out? Is then the Trans-Pacific, fancy words, Trans-Pacific Partnership, is that Trans-Pacific or China? You have to delineate. There is no Taiwan, nor Singapore, nor any other country. The engine factory is China and their system. There is no other. But then they're trying to popularize, make a... And then they come with the fancy words, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Partnership, there is a system coming. You are in line with it or you're not in line with it. The adjustment administration is each country to his own. They have to regulate what they take out of taxes every time there is a transaction. That's the complexity of the situation. The rest of it, partnership. Partnership with what? It's not Asia. It's going to be the sons of Ishmael. Arabia. That's where then the administration of deals from country to country, obviously strong countries, because scoundrelized countries with no ethics, what are they going to do in the midst of giants? They can barely work their ethics through. How are they going to show up in an important reunion making grander decisions regarding the world's relationship? But then comes the fancy words, Trans-Pacific. And they don't understand the scripture. We have come out of 1,000 years of deceit. Not very many people didn't have the enlightenment to understand in these last 36 months. So then obviously we should first update our tax code. Make sure that we charge taxes per transaction, making deals easier when they file their taxes. But then as per transaction gives you then the complexity of exercise of when the system comes. If we can do this very interestingly, very simply, people making transactions online, the government takes its share of each transaction. It's going to give them a sample of what this system is coming in the future. So then we can adapt more fastly. But then we want to join the crowd, don't we? 1,000 years of deceit, junky relationships, countries trying to make stronger and weak than, gray area. And then they try to get around with it. Is that going to work? No. Some countries have no ethics. Thus the angel says, those are going to be scoundrels, be scoundrels. Those are going to be worthy, be worthy. This situation of U.S. launching negotiations with Europe makes absolutely no sense. From the enlightenment of the scripture of the time of restoration and reduction, makes absolutely nonsense. Because they are yet understanding the world from the time of deceit. They were born during the 1,000 years of deceit. So the natural fact is trying to maintain deceit, but then how are you going to explain preparation of the world for the autumn feast? You can't avoid it. Because the main factor is the system is coming. Nations caught unawares, they're going to have a real overwhelming time trying to line up themselves with. There is no Trans-Pacific administration partnership of any kind. There is the computerized system of China. They lined up with it or they don't line up with it. and they can't compete with China. And then partnerships and understandings from country to country is going to be done via the first son, via the Ishmaelites. They won't have any more Asian reunions or then US reunions to making their own decisions. There is no more making countries' own decisions. It's already lined up for the preparation of the autumn feast. The vengeance belongs to the Creator, and He lines up for His feast. Either we are in line with it, or we are not in line with it. You can be sure of it, you can believe it. When a person or then a system or a country is not in line with it in the future, boy, they're going to have a very heavy and tough time to understand it. Because the self-adjusting system won't let them have in their way anymore. There we are launching ourselves with another people in Europe and other countries, and what about our system? We can barely get a revenue from the internet. And then we are mixing up with the Eurozone, understanding it's going to break. And removal of the gold from the country does not give any warning. IMF, so long speaking of it, does not mean much for our country, and then we're going to set up ourselves for failure. But if we do understand in time, we have 36 months, roughly 36 months, to get our system at least lined up and somewhat organized. When it is, and the paper money fails, then we are at least with the system lined up. When the neutral Chinese system comes, we are prepared for it. Please stay tuned, much more coming up.